Good morning, class 10 students. I welcome you all on this online platform provided by Jagriti Classes. We are doing chapter 6 of class 10, that is life processes. In the last class, we discussed transportation system in humans or animals, you can say, and we discussed the functioning of human heart. So this video is for class 10 students, and we are doing chapter 6, that is life processes. In the last I told you how does a human heart looks like, okay? Human heart is a muscular organ which is divided into 4 chambers. The upper 2 chambers are known as atrium or auricles, and the lower 2 chambers are called ventricles. The chambers present on the right hand side are called right auricle and right ventricle, whereas the chambers present on the left are known as left auricle and left ventricle. Then we discussed the mechanism of functioning of heart, that is the passage of blood through the heart, and we called this circulatory system to be a double circulation type. Why we referred, this is again a very important question which is asked in boards very frequently. What do you mean by the term double circulation? Or it is also given in the form of long questions in boards, that is explain double circulation in humans. So if you are given a question of double circulation, then firstly you have to write its definition, the same definition which we discussed in the previous video lecture. Double circulation means because the blood passes through the heart twice or 2 times during one cycle. This pathway is known as double circulation, because the blood is passing through the heart 2 times. So you call it to be a double circulation pathway. Then next comes, this double circulation can be divided into 2 categories. That is, the 2 categories of this circulation. The first one would be systematic circulation, and the next would be pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary word is, again I told you, refers to the relative processes of lungs. So whenever the blood passes through the lungs, this circulation is known as pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary circulation involves the passage of blood from the pulmonary artery into the lungs, and then when it is carried away again from the lungs through this pulmonary vein. So this circulation involving 3 parts, pulmonary artery, lungs, and then your pulmonary veins, this circulation of blood is known as pulmonary circulation, and this circulation also we have already discussed. If you are asked what is the importance of this pulmonary circulation, why pulmonary circulation is seen in organisms or in humans, the answer to this would be because this pulmonary circulation is responsible for filtration of blood, or in a more scientific manner you can say pulmonary circulation is responsible for oxygenation of blood. Oxygenation of blood. Oxygenation means addition of oxygen or mixing oxygen into the blood. And you can also say that the pulmonary circulation is responsible for, or it helps in the conversion of deoxygenated blood into its oxygenated form. When the deoxygenated blood is converted to oxygenated blood, this process occurs in the lungs, and wherever you can also write a specialized location. In the lungs you have your structural units, that is alveoli, and this alveoli we have also discussed in great detail when we were dealing with respiration. So you know how the gaseous exchange takes place between this alveoli and the blood vessels present on the surface of alveoli. So this pulmonary circulation is responsible for oxygenation of blood, or for the conversion of deoxygenated blood into oxygenated form, and this oxygenation of blood occurs at alveoli surface. Then we had, what do you mean by the term systematic circulation? all the circulation of blood except this pulmonary circulation is your systematic, that is starting from the vena cavas. The blood enters, you know, we have already done to the right auricle, then it enters to the right ventricle and so on. Then it leaves the heart through the pulmonary artery and undergoes pulmonary circulation. Again, when this pulmonary vein drains the blood back into left auricle, so you can say that this one is the first round when the blood enters your heart, and then this pulmonary artery drains all the blood into this lungs for oxygenation of blood. Next you have what? This pulmonary vein drains the blood into left auricle or left atrium. From the left atrium it passes to left ventricle, and then it goes into aorta, which is your largest artery, and then the blood is pumped into different organs. So this one would be the second circulatory cycle. So now I hope this flow, according to this flow chart, it is well clear enough that why it is called double circulation, because see, the blood is circulating through the heart twice in one single cycle. This double circulation, all the systematic and pulmonary circulation occurs in one single cycle of blood circulation, and hence it is known as double circulation. Then we said that in humans or in birds and mammals we have four-chambered heart. Why so? That is according to the number of chambers present in your heart, you have different organisms or different categories and classes of organisms. If we are talking, then you have four-chambered heart, then such four-chambered heart is present in humans, mammals and birds. So four-chambered heart is found in birds and mammals. And why do we have four chambers of heart? Because these complex organisms, birds and mammals, they require very high amount of energy to perform their day-to-day activities and to cope up with their daily needs. In turn, this four-chambered heart separates the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Then again here one question is asked, in which side of the heart deoxygenated blood flows or deoxygenated blood is found? Then you will say that in the right side of the heart, that is in right atrium and right ventricles, you have the deoxygenated blood. Whereas in the left side of the heart, always oxygenated blood only flows. So birds and mammals have four-chambered heart because they have high energy requirement. Because of the requirement of high energy to perform their daily activities and to cope up with their metabolic needs. And then the next is these four chambers keep the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood well separated off. Okay? This prevents the mixing, four chamber prevents mixing of deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood. Then next you have what? Presence of three-chambered heart and two-chambered heart. So three-chambered heart is present in amphibians and reptiles. And one exception in reptiles is crocodile. Crocodile is an exception because it is a reptile but it does not have a three-chambered heart. In fact, crocodile possesses four-chambered heart in it. Crocodile has a four-chambered heart. And two-chambered heart, such simple heart is found in fishes. And hence, because in fishes only two-chambered heart is present, they have less requirement of energy. And here, mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood occurs. Because you have only two chambers and these two chambers are not well separated off. So in fishes, in the heart of fishes, mixing of deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood occurs. And if I talk about this circulation, then in fishes, single circulation is only present compared to humans and mammals which have double circulation type blood flow. So in fishes you have single circulation. Talking in detail, as it is given in your book, that is single circulation and two-chambered heart present in fishes. So if you talk about the mechanism found in fishes, okay, this is present in fishes and other simple aquatic organisms. So in fishes, what do you have? Let's suppose these are the two chambers of heart you have. This one would be the atrium and this is the ventricle. So this is the heart of fishes. This is the heart, and as you can see, this atrium and ventricle are not separated, okay? So the blood present in atrium and ventricles undergo mixing. And this blood is deoxygenated blood. So from the organs of the fishes, the veins collect all the deoxygenated blood and transfer it to the heart. And because in the heart there is no proper separation of this oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, you do not show any kind of separation. Then once from the body organs through a network of veins, when this blood passes through the heart, it then again remains in the deoxygenated form. No type of oxygenation occurs in the heart of fishes. This is your heart of fishes. And then from the heart, this deoxygenated blood is transported to the gills. As we all know that in the fishes, you have the presence of gills which supply oxygen and which you can say helps in the exchange of gases, exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And from where do these gills receive oxygen? From the presence of dissolved oxygen content in the water bodies in the surrounding water environment. So in these gills, the purification of blood occurs. That is, the deoxygenated blood which was present, this deoxygenated blood gets converted into oxygenated blood. So here you can say gills are the sites or locations for oxygenation of blood. In fishes. And the site for oxygenation of blood in humans is alveolar surface, or you can say lungs. Alveoli present in the lungs. But in fishes you have these gills which are the sites for oxygenation of blood. And from the gills, this oxygenated blood is again transported through a network of arteries and capillaries into the respective desired organs of the fishes. So here you have the oxygenated blood coming. So from the blue marker we have shown the deoxygenated blood, and this is your oxygenated blood. And gills are the sites or the regions where deoxygenated blood gets converted into oxygenated blood. And hence this diagram represents single circulation which is present in fishes. This is a kind of circulation which you have in fishes. There is no proper separation. There is no intermixing of bloods. And gills, the heart is not responsible for any kind of purification, but the sites of oxygenation of blood are these gills present on the body surface of fish. So this is the single circulation in fishes. And then you are not given about the three-chambered heart, its physiology and functioning, so we will not be doing it in detail. Next, what you have is the difference between blood vessels. So you know, what do you mean by blood vessels? And then we'll do the types of blood vessels found in humans basically. So blood vessels, talking about its definition, these are the cylindrical, blood vessels are the cylindrical tube-like structures found in an organism, found in any organism, and within these blood vessels and within these tubular structures, blood flows. So in this manner you can define blood vessels. Blood vessels are generally cylindrical tubular structure within which the blood flows in any organism. Then you have three types of blood vessels. If we talk about the type of blood vessels, different kinds of vessels present, then here you can have the three kinds of blood vessels. The first one would be arteries. The first is arteries. The next what you have are capillaries. And the last one would be veins. So these three kinds of blood vessels are present in any circulatory system. Arteries, it can be defined as those vessels which carry blood, which carry oxygenated blood, or you can say arteries carry blood away from the heart. So arteries, these vessels carry blood away from the heart. Then the next point in arteries would be, it can also be defined as those vessels which carry oxygenated blood. So in both manners you can define an artery. Artery is a blood vessel which carries oxygenated blood, that is the blood containing high amount of oxygen in it, or you can say these carry the blood away from the heart towards the organs. Then talking about these veins, capillaries, we'll be doing it in the further section. So now veins, just as reverse of this definition, that is just the reverse of, when you write the reverse of definition of arteries, you get the definition of veins here. Arteries were the vessels which carry blood away from heart. So veins would be the vessels which carry blood towards the heart. So these are the vessels, the blood vessels in fact, which carry blood away. If you are writing, then you should write it carries blood away from organs or the respective tissues. Or you can also write it carries blood towards the heart. Then the next point would also be the reverse of this. Arteries are the vessels which carry oxygenated blood, and hence veins would be the vessels. These veins, they carry deoxygenated blood within them. Veins carry deoxygenated blood within them. Now talking about these arteries, the next point would be these vessels have thick walls. So these have thick walls compared to the veins which possess thin walls in them. Now a question occurs, why these arteries have a thick walls, and what are the functions of these thin walls, or what is the requirement of thin walls in veins? So because these arteries have the function to carry blood away from the heart to different organs. If you remember the mechanism of blood pumping in your heart, then we said that ventricles have a thicker muscular wall compared to the walls of auricle. I am talking about walls here, okay? And not valves. Valves are the muscular gates present between auricle and ventricle, which on getting force by the blood, they get open and shut down. And these valves, they prevent backflow of the blood. But these walls, so you have thick walls in your ventricular or lower regions in the heart compared to atrium or auricle regions. What were the functions of these walls? The thick walls were present in ventricles because they were required to pump the blood into pulmonary artery or into the aorta, so that the blood is pumped with such high pressure that it reaches to the different organs. So here also, these arteries have the function to carry blood away from the heart. These are carrying blood away from the heart, but to where? So you can say they carry the blood towards different organs. And if these arteries are responsible for carrying blood towards the organs, the blood which would be flowing in them would be in a high pressure. And to tolerate this pressure, they contain thick walls. So you can write the next point. And similarly, the veins, because these are carrying blood from the organs towards the heart, they do not require any kind of thick walls in them, because the blood in veins flows under a low pressure compared to arteries. So this will include as the fourth point of difference between arteries and veins. 3 points of differentiation we have already done. The fourth point of difference between arteries and veins, that blood flows under high pressure within the arteries. And talking about the veins, in veins the blood flows under very low pressure. And this would be also the answer to the question which I asked and explained you, that why do arteries have thick walls? Because you can say that inside the arteries the blood flows requires a very high pressure, and to tolerate this pressure, arteries need to have thick walls so that they do not burst off or they do not get damaged when the blood flows through them with a higher pressure. Then the next is an exception. You should remember that largest artery present in the body is aorta. Aorta is the artery which delivers blood to all the different kinds of organs present in the body of any organism. Okay, this aorta we have seen when we were dealing with the mechanism and the 4 chambers of heart. Now there is one exception. The exception is pulmonary artery here. Okay, first we'll write one more point. We have not written that arteries, okay, we have written arteries are the blood vessels which carry oxygenated blood within them. But there is one artery which is known as pulmonary artery. The exception here would be pulmonary artery. Why this pulmonary artery is exception? Because we said that arteries carry the blood away from the heart and they carry oxygenated blood in them. But in this pulmonary artery, if you remember the structure of heart, then the pulmonary artery starts from right ventricle. And this pulmonary artery is carrying the blood away from the heart, but this is not carrying oxygenated blood. This pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood within itself. So pulmonary artery is an exception because it carries deoxygenated blood. It carries deoxygenated blood within itself. Whereas there is also an exception, that is pulmonary vein here. All the veins carry deoxygenated blood within them. But pulmonary vein, if you remember from the diagram of the heart which we studied, pulmonary veins carry which kind of blood? They carry pure or oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. So exception here is pulmonary vein. It is named as a vein because it is carrying blood towards the heart. Okay, so this is kept in the category of vein. Why it is kept in the category of vein? Because it carries blood towards the heart. But why then this is known as an exception? Because if it is a vein, it is carrying blood towards the heart, then it should carry deoxygenated blood within it. But this vessel is an exception because it carries pure, or you can say oxygenated blood within its volume. Because it carries oxygenated blood within itself. So these are the comparative study between arteries and veins, and this was a great detailed account or a great comparative account. All the differences I have written with the exceptions, and you should remember them because a question might be asked in exam and these differences are well clear. You can also make these points of differences when you go through your NCERT textbooks. Now we had one more blood vessels which I said we'll be dealing, and now we'll be dealing with this blood vessels which is your capillaries. So what are capillaries? Now starting with capillaries. Capillaries are the very fine blood vessels, or they are very thin blood vessels, and they form a network of vessels which is also hence known as capillary bed. So capillaries, they are very thin and fine tubular structures which have thin walls. These have very fine and thin walls and are generally found in the form of network referred to as a capillary bed. So, and where they are found? These are present at the surface of tissues or organs, at the surface of different organs or tissues. So these are what we have as capillaries. Now let's try to understand these capillaries. How do they are formed? So this we have as our heart, and from the heart you have different arteries. From the heart we have different kinds of arteries which are carrying which kind of blood? Oxygenated blood, and their function is to carry oxygenated blood away from the heart towards the organs. So when this artery will reach any organ, then this artery gets divided into very fine blood vessels, okay? And each of this blood, an artery is the thick vessel. When this artery gets divided, these blood vessels or the divisions are known as arterioles, which are comparatively thinner as compared to the size of artery. And these arterioles reaching to a particular tissue, these again get divided into very fine thread-like or root-like structures and in the form of network. And this network form, this is, let's suppose, the surface of the tissue. So the artery carrying the blood away from the heart, which is carrying an oxygenated blood, it gets divided into thinner blood vessels which are known as arterioles, and these arterioles, when it enters to a certain tissue, it forms very fine network of thread-like tubular structures which are called capillaries. So this is a network of very fine tube-like structures, and these are called your capillaries. And hence, with the help of these capillaries, each and every cell present in this tissue, you know, if this is a tissue, it will be made out of a group of cells. So the function of capillary is to provide the oxygenated blood, that is the blood carrying oxygen, to each and every cell. And so, on the surface of any tissue or organ, you have a network of capillaries, this network is known as capillary bed. Now, when each and every cell would get oxygenated blood, then it would perform its metabolic reactions, and then it would also exclude out or release waste materials, okay? Each and every cell would release waste materials, and these waste materials will also be carried away by the capillaries. So these are again the capillaries which are carrying away the waste materials, and now these capillaries unite together or form a common blood vessel. And this blood vessel would be called the veins. First, these capillaries will unite to form thin blood vessels called the veinlets, and now these veinlets will combine together to form a large blood vessel which is your veins. And now the veins which are carrying what sort of blood? These veins carry deoxygenated blood. And along with deoxygenated blood, you have other kinds of waste materials collected from these cells. So, at the tissues, you have a network of capillaries present. These capillaries are responsible for the function of carrying oxygen and nutrients to each and every cell. And then they also collect, these capillaries are also responsible to collect all sorts of waste material from each and every individual cell. And these waste material along with the deoxygenated blood moves into veinlets. From these veinlets, thick veins are being formed, and now from these thick veins, the deoxygenated blood is received again into the heart. So this is the function of all your blood vessels, artery, capillaries and veins. So we have now completed with the blood vessels. I have already told you about single circulation and then different types of circulation found in different animals. What are the requirement of four chambers? That is, when the organisms need higher energy, then they have four-chambered heart, but the simple organisms which have low energy requirement, they undergo the intermixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, and so they do not have much chambered heart. Like in fishes, you have only two-chambered heart. And these are all the blood vessels which we have discussed. Now in the next class, we will be doing about transportation in plants. And to give you a brief idea, we'll just start the introduction of this topic. That is, now we have to show transportation in plants. Okay, before this first I'll give you an idea of transportation, and then in the starting of the next class, we'll be doing about lymph. What do you mean by lymph? What are the properties? Okay. So firstly, because only some time is left, so I'll give you a brief idea about transportation, as we'll not be able to understand completely and complete this topic in this time. So transportation in plants, you need to transfer two things in plants. The main two things are food needs to be transferred, and then you have water and minerals. Water and the minerals which are dissolved in water. So food and water are the two things which need to be transported in plants. You have already done this in some brief idea in class 9th. So food is transported with the help of phloem here, whereas the transfer of water is done by the tissue xylem. And this xylem and phloem, these are combinedly called your vascular system or vascular bundles. These are your vascular bundles. These are also referred to as conducting tissues. This, I hope, everything which I am taking as an introduction, I am giving you a quick recap, a quick revision. This all you have studied in class 9, chapter 6, that is tissues. So this xylem and phloem are responsible for transport of water and food. How to remember that this phloem, it starts from the word fur, and food also starts from fur. So phloem is responsible for the transport of food, and xylem is responsible for transport of water and minerals. The next is what? The transport of food, it is also known as translocation. The process of transport of food is called translocation. This is again an important term which is asked in exams. What do you understand by the term translocation? Then this phloem, it helps in multi-directional transport. Or you can also say this transport to be a bidirectional transport system. Whereas the transportation system done by xylem, it is in the form of unidirectional. Because xylem is responsible for transport of water, and transport of water is achieved from the roots to the aerial parts. Whereas food, you all know, is synthesized in the leaves of plant. And this food synthesized from the leaves need to be transported to the downward cells also to the sideways directions. So we say that the transfer of food shown by phloem is multidirectional or bidirectional compared to the transport of water, which is only unidirectional from the roots, from the source of water absorption to the aerial parts of plant. Now in the next class, we'll be dealing a short topic which is left, which is your lymph tissue fluid, and then we'll be dealing with transportation in plants in quite detail. So thank you for joining today's class. If you have any sort of difficulty in understanding any concept, you can contact us. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.